Hello guys, today we're gonna tell you about the types of interest groups and interest group strategies done by Karina Jan and Tulgana Jiksimbekova. So we will start from content. Firstly about interest groups, secondly economic interest groups, environmental groups, then public interest groups, fifth additional types of interest groups, six foreign interest groups, and seventh interest group strategies, and eight regulating lobbyists, and nine is conclusion. So, what is interest group? Interest group, an organized group of individuals sharing common objectives who actively attempt to influence policymakers. What is economic interest groups? So business interest groups are represented by such associations as National Association of Manufacturers (NAM) and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Agricultural interest group represent the interest of farmers. The issues include crop prices, international trade agreements, and land owning agreements. As an example, in American Farm Bureau Federation, which was founded in 1911. Labor interest groups. Public employee unions. These trade unions represent the interest of employees working for the government, such as firefighters, police officers, and so on. Such trade unions, AFCSME, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, NEA, National Association of Education, and etc. The political environment faced by labor. Labor groups represent unions which work to increase wages and improve working conditions for both skilled and unskilled workers. Labor interest groups are economic interest groups whose purpose is to influence policy in a direction favorable to organized labor. Interest groups of professional. The organized poor. There is also a group of unorganized poor who do not have the resources to represent them and protect their interests because their interests are represented by the church, charitable foundation, or social workers. Environmental groups. Today's environmental groups and global warming. NRDC, Surfrider Foundation, Sierra Club, WWF, Oceana, Greenpeace, the Climate Reality Project, and others. Public interest groups. The best interest of the overall community, the national good, rather than the narrow interest of a particular group. The consumer movement, Consumer Union 1936, and Public Interest Research Groups 1970. Other public interest groups are Common Cause 1968 and League of Women Voters 1920s. League of Women Voters members in front of the White of the House. You can see here in the picture was done in 1924. So additional types of interest groups. Then ideological groups. Ideological interest groups might work on various different issues, but their work is driven by deeply held beliefs. Some examples of ideological interest groups include the National Organization for Women, the National Taxpayers Union, the Christian Coalition. Each organization has an ideological point of view that determines which specific issues or campaigns they get involved in and which side of an issue they take. Identity groups. Still, other groups represent Americans who share a common identity, such as membership in a particular race or ethnic group. The NAACP, founded in 1909, and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People represents African Americans. Foreign interest groups. This type is already described as lobbying of foreign actors. The governments of the largest U.S. trading partners, such as Japan, South Korea, Canada, and the European Union, countries maintain substantial research and lobbying staffs. Interest group strategies. Direct techniques. Lobbying by publishing the voting records of members of the legislature, building alliance, campaign assistance. Indirect techniques. Generation public pressure using constituents as lobbyists, unconventional forms of pressure, marches, rallies, and demonstrations. Direct techniques. First, lobbying techniques, second, the rating game, and the third is campaign at distance. Lobbying techniques. The rating game. An interest group grades each candidate on how well they have voted based on the interest of the group. Campaign at distance. Groups recognize that the greatest concern of legislators is to be re-elected, so they focus on the legislators' campaign needs. Indirect techniques. Generating public pressure using constituents as lobbyists. Generating public pressure. This can be done by informing the public about a specific issue, often by advertisement in newspapers, radio, or television. Using constituents as lobbyists. That requires the interest groups to convince its members to contact a member of the legislature by mail or phone about a specific legislative proposal. Regulating lobbyists. Federal Legal Regulations of Lobbying Act of 1946 defined that lobbyists, any person or organization that received money to be used principally to influence legislation before Congress. Lobbyists had to register their clients and purpose of their efforts and disclose quarterly. Lobbying Disclosure Act of 1995 redefined lobbyists anyone who spends at least 20% of their time lobbying members of Congress or staff or executive branch officials must register with the clerk of the House and the Secretary of the Senate. Semiannual reports must disclose the general nature of the lobbying efforts. Recent legislation. The Honest Leadership and Open Government Act of 2007. Lobbyists must report quarterly, and the legislation threshold is $10,000 in spending per quarter. Organizations must report coalition activities if they contribute more than $5,000 to a coalition. The House and the Senate must post lobbying information in a searchable file on the Internet. Expenditure must be identified and made public. So this is all. Thank you for your attention.